There's one common piece of advice that we hear given out all the time that is undoubtedly causing you trouble in your swing. So in today's video, you're going to learn why this common swing advice is so damaging to your swing. We're going to show you what to do instead and why it's going to be way more beneficial for not only your speed, but your consistency. Then of course, we're going to give you a nice drill to do to show you how to incorporate it. Shaun, I'm going to have you get into a setup here, just a normal setup.
Okay.
Bump your hips forward a little bit. Okay, that's the first hip bump you want to avoid.
Yeah.
That does not do your backswing great. You're going to have to recover from that right off the bat. Okay, so let's start normal.
Okay.
And let's go to the top of the swing.
Okay.
Now start the downswing with a hip bump. That's the second one, and probably the one that you may have been fighting that really is going to wreak havoc in your golf swing. We don't want to do that.
No, we don't really want to do either one of those.
Right.
Because in the golf swing, you're putting by doing that, you're adding in an extra movement that you have to undo later on.
At address, bumping the hips forward gets this hip higher than this hip. This hip's got to get lower than this hip. So I don't know why you would want to start more behind, because you don't want to pivot where this hip stays high.
Well, it causes level hips.
Yes.
Not only that, at the top of the swing, we want to displace this hip away from this initial spot we had it in. It should move this way.
Correct.
And by bumping the hip this way, you're going to keep camped out or stay camped out on this lead hip, and you lose all that momentum and athletic movement that you would have by kind of letting yourself shift into your right side. It camps you out here too much.
Yep. Okay, now let's go to the top again.
Okay, I'm at the top of the swing.
And the reason you don't want to drive this hip forward, bump it out forward, is now you've created no stopping point to this hip, so it makes it impossible for the trail hip to get through.
It's a hip block, right?
It's a hip block.
You've blocked yourself. The other thing it does, and I was taught to hip slide, okay, so I still have the remnants.
Same here.
Remnants of this. And we pay attention to the trail leg a lot in transition. It's one of the things that we look at in high-level players. They move it in a similar way. And what happens if you get your hips to bump forward, you're causing the trail leg to straighten when it actually should be regaining flex and kind of lowering a little bit.
A lot of you may be getting this hip bump by pushing off the back foot, which again is a straightener, moves pressure to the back foot, not the front foot.
That's a rotation blocker.
Right.
You know, when you slide forward or bump forward really hard and this leg straightens, you've literally blocked any chance you have to let this trail side come around, which we'll get to in a minute, to get your body in a position to hit the ball not only with some club speed, but have some control of the face.
So if you're a hip bumper at the setup or a hip bumper in this transition or start of the downswing, stop doing that. We're going to show you what to do instead. So before we jump into the what you want to do, if you haven't done so already, click on that subscribe button down below. Really helps us out a lot, allows us to produce more and better content for you. And also leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you're struggling with in your golf swing. We read all the comments. We can help you out or make a video to help you out as best we can. And if you want more training, if you need more help in this area, make sure to go to the first pinned comment below, click on that link, and it'll take you to some more free training to get your game where you want it. Let's talk about what should happen now. We talked about the bad, let's talk about the good.
Yeah, let's talk about address first.
Okay.
So get yourself, we've done videos about the stance, get yourself in the correct stance width, get bent over at address. Your trail hand's going to be a little lower than your right, so you're going to get a little bit of tilt, but your pelvis line or the hip line here across them that would show trail hip high or trail hip low or vice versa, just get your hips level. If you bump them this way, like you said earlier, this hip starts to get high at address, you start to already tilt your spine to the right, and you end up pivoting something like this, which gets the upper body mass too far over this way and the hip mass this way, and again, from there, you're basically blocked yourself out.
Right, so just think, you know, if we're standing having a conversation, my hips are pretty level if I'm standing on both feet. Now I can kind of do this, you don't want to do that. Just stand on both feet level and get used to taking your address from there. It's as simple as just bending over. A lot of golfers with back issues or back pain, in that going to the address position will sometimes kind of find ways to maybe avoid some pain and do kind of weird things. Keep an eye on that. Do this in a mirror, have someone film it, and just make sure when you're bending over, you're staying level and not twisting yourself from the standing posture to the golf posture.
Great point. It's kind of fairly square and You could even practice like this, just making sure
Yep.
you're pretty square. This will be a little bit higher, but no need at all to bump this hip over this way.
Okay, let's go to the top now.
All right, so I've arrived at the top of the swing. So let's just say you got here at a perfect kind of tour-like, professional-looking top of the backswing, right? So the bad we already know is this. So the thought process that helps golfers when we work with them that have too much bump, right? We tell them at the top of the swing, they're going to feel like this hip is as far forward as it's going to get, okay?
Well, let's rewind that for a second. There's going to be a recentering. So you're going to start in the middle. You're going to shift off a little bit, just the momentum of the backswing. And then you're going to fall back to the middle. That's already getting my pelvis working this direction.
Yeah, you've landed back in the middle,
Right.
basically, right? The great thought process there and concept. So instead of this, which everybody has been taught at one point or another, including you and I, you're going to feel like this is the end of the the forward motion with your lead hip. So if I just put
You're
this
no
here-
longer trying to move this pelvis, this side of the pelvis forward.
right. So that, let's just say that's where it is.
Again, that's the
top.
feel.
Yeah. From there, you're going to feel like this lead hip stays where it is. Basically, it's going to rotate, but it's going to stay where it is in space
Laterally,
left to right.
yep.
I'm going to allow my trail side, the leg to start bending, and the trail side to start coming around to meet up with the lead hip in this direction.
Let's do that again. So I'm
Yeah.
going to give a vertical line here. So you're going to recenter back into this.
Yeah, so I started, a couple fingers. I just moved away a little with the turning.
Yep.
Now I'm back to where I started.
Yep.
Right, I've recentered. And then I'm going to feel like the trail side comes toward the lead side where it is. Now, by doing that and having that feeling and thought process, I'm still going to allow the pelvis is still going to move forward, but it's going to move forward the right amount, and it's going to allow the trail side to work the way it's supposed to, which is trail leg kind of flexing and the trail hip moving out and around
Yes.
to where it's closer to the ball line.
What you want to understand with all the hip movement numbers you've seen us do over the years and anyone else on 3D is it's measuring the center of the pelvis. This hip isn't moving 8 inches forward, right? It's the center of the pelvis. To get the center of the pelvis forward with rotation, I have to at some point have an end to this left hip.
Yep.
Then I've got to bring the center out and around, and it is going out and around. It doesn't just go back. It's a very big misnomer. But if you'll notice when you did that, right, his left hip is working back up this shaft that I've got here out in front of him as his right comes around.
I mean, back this way.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's not moving backwards,
well, it's moving that way. It
Yes.
starts to go up and around, right?
not this way.
Yeah.
That we want to avoid too.
Yeah, so what he's saying is when this starts coming around, you don't want to back the lead one up. You just kind of get this one where it is, right?
Yep.
And then this one comes around to meet it as you're tucking your pelvis under and the belt rises. You see with great players.
I always say you just get the left hip on the wall and then you bring
Yep.
the right hip to the wall as
Boom,
well.
Boom, and there you go. And it's going to magically start getting your right knee to start looking like these high-level players where it starts to bend a little bit and you kind of sink just a little bit. The heel's not flying up or anything like that. It just comes around to where the left one is. And that'll give you like that 4 to 5 inch lateral motion that we see with great players with the pelvis.
Okay, now we know what to do. How do we want to train this?
So we've got these tour bags here. We always will bring one of these up and give yourself about 4 inches or a fist width here. So you're going to bring this up, have a fist here at address. I'm going to feel like at the top of the swing, I've gained a little bit there, and then I'm just going to feel like as I come down, the right hip's going to come around. I'm still going to close the gap, but it's the thought process now how I'm closing the gap. It's so
It's
different.
bringing that center of the pelvis forward with rotation, not just letting it slide because this hip keeps going down the fairway.
Yeah, I could close the gap that way, which is what this video is all about. Don't do that.
Right.
Or I could close the gap, letting the trail side come around, which gets me more on top of the ball, gets my body in the right place.
And if you don't have a tour bag, Amazon box, we use boxes all the time.
Stick a shaft in the ground.
Yeah, stick a shaft in the ground, a chair turned around backwards. Like you can get creative. It's just giving you something tangible to have a fist width outside of that hip, kind of right where the thigh is at the widest, right there. And you'll be in good shape if you can move up to it without banging into it or backing away from it.